Welcome to the Critically Numb Podcast, where questions are everything and answers are debatable.
Welcome to episode 3 of the Critically Numb Podcast. I'm your host, Sean, and joining me tonight is my co-host,
Louise.
And like I said, thank you for joining us tonight. I'm taking over presenting duties because apparently my wife can't speak English tonight. So I'm not really sure what the questions were, because like I said, I just pitch up. I don't really do any of the work. So
Is this how we're going to do this podcast?
this is how we're going to do the podcast.
Okay, I'm going to leave this in here.
Mm-hmm.
Before we get stuck into the question that we were going to discuss tonight on podcast 3, we need to touch on a comment that somebody made from our last podcast about you saying that you don't want to be associated with the word Christian. So if you could elaborate on that, that would be super.
Okay, yeah. So I don't know how much there really is to elaborate on it. I think this could be a whole podcast on its own. There's probably enough to speak about here for the next 1,000 years. But the main thing for me is why I don't want to be associated with the word Christian is because everything that is associated with that word. Just to give a little bit of an example, we watched this new series on Netflix about the Hillsong Church, and that is what the world thinks Christianity is.
Yes.
You know, so Christianity really, to the rest of the world, really is the Hillsongs and the Kenneth Copelands and all these pastors who are caught in sexual scandals and money laundering and fraud, and you know, that's just one aspect of it. That's all Christianity. You know, people think of Christianity, they think of the Catholic Church, they think of everything that the Catholic Church has done in the name of Jesus, which honestly, let's be honest, was never in his name. And then you have to then also think of just individuals as a whole. So my walk with Christians, I can't really say has been a great one. I've been more hurt and disappointed by Christians than I think was actually necessary. You know, so a lot of Christians that I've met have been very dishonest, deceitful, manipulative, you know, not exactly models to follow. So when I came out of rehab, I was very new Christian. I believed in Christianity before that, but I was a very Christian on almost like an intellectual level. I feel like when I went to rehab, something changed in my heart, and I think I really accepted God. And when I came out of rehab, I really had a lot of hope for what I was going to find in a church, and what kind of people I was going to find, and it was going to be amazing, and it was going to be a family, and it was going to be awesome, and I was going to find my purpose and my place and somewhere I belong, and all these great things that my mind had planned, because this is what I read in the Bible about this community that was one, and just amazing. You know, that's the picture I had in my head, and maybe I built up that picture too much, because in reality that is definitely not what I found. And I think it really hurt my faith that I didn't find that, because at the end of the day, that is kind of what you look for when you read the Bible, and you hear about Christianity. You think about love, you think about community, you think about unity, but what you get when you hit church is, like I said, just a lot of craziness and a lot of people that either don't understand what they believe in, kind of just faking it. I believe a lot of Christians are Christians for 2 or 3 hours a week when they have to be. So you're a Christian on Sunday, and maybe that once a week in your home group you're a Christian, but the rest of the time you're not really a Christian. I actually made this gave you this example that Christianity is like, you know, when you sweep stuff underneath the rug, right?
Yes,
Christianity is the rug, and we sweep all our stuff underneath that rug. So we use this word as Christianity to hide behind, you know. So when people ask you who and what you are, no, I'm a Christian, because apparently with this word Christian, there's all these wonderful things attached to it. But meanwhile, behind that, you're not really any of that. So it's like the mask we put on to hide who and what we truly are. I don't think it was ever supposed to be like that. So the reason why I don't want to be associated with Christianity is because the word itself has lost its meaning. Not because of Jesus or because of God, but because of Christians in themselves. I think I'm kind of like, I think it was Gandhi that said that he would have been a Christian if it wasn't for the Christians. And I think I'm with him in that. I don't want to be a Christian because of the Christians. And again, I haven't met every Christian in the world, so I can only speak from my experiences that I've had here in South Africa, where the Christians I've met here. But so far, from what I've seen in the world and from what I've seen of Christians, yeah, I don't know. I think I'm yet to meet a Christian that truly believes in the Bible. You know, because as soon as we put a denomination above our heads, we don't really truly read and believe in our Bibles. But anyway, so yeah, that I guess that's another topic.
I have to agree with you, because my experiences lately have been pretty much the same, where I've started to see things very differently from what I did before. And not that I see it differently. Maybe it's just because I'm more aware of it now because of the circumstances that we've been placed in and the things that have happened to us, that I've experienced pretty much the same thing. And I think there's a lot of people that can agree with that. A lot of people can tell you that they would rather not deal with Christians, because the minute they've got that category, they know that somewhere along the line they're going to be what's a typical South African word, schneid. So if you're not living in South Africa, to be schneid is to be done in, basically. That's a very slang thing to say, and I have to agree with it. You know, you actually mentioned something earlier, and I know it's another topic and we can get into it another day, but to start categorizing, the minute we start categorizing Christians under all of these different banners, we're already separated. And if the foundation itself is already flawed and has some kind of lies within the foundation, the probability is that Christians under Christianity as the banner, there's going to be lies in that. But it's another subject for another day.
Yeah, so just quickly, so on that, I've met a lot of people who do business that say that as soon as somebody says to them that they're Christian, they're very wary of doing business with them. I mean, that should never be the case.
No.
And like I said, people just use Christianity to justify their behaviors and to hide behind who and what they truly are. So
yeah, and again, that can be a subject for another day. If you have any questions or you have any comments on it, you're welcome to send them in, and we can discuss them.
Yeah,
because it's a very big subject. You can't just do it in one small little section. Now, there's a lot we can actually discuss on that. Right, so let's get to the subject at hand. And this was a question that came in a couple of weeks ago from a lady across the ocean. She asked the question: I watched my daughter drying dishes this morning at 4 years old, cheered on by my mother-in-law and by my husband's godmother who is visiting. While I stood there smiling and proud, I couldn't help but shake the nagging thought in my head of, my son was never taught to dry dishes. Is this how we already instill the ropes into our daughters? I am always torn between the role of being the subservient wife, as the Bible says, and the powerful woman who wants my daughter to not be raised as someone's slave. This is food for thought. So before we go any further, we obviously would need to read the part of the Bible that I feel people are getting this thought confused with. And I'm going to leave it up to my husband, because he reads much better than me, as we discovered from the beginning of the podcast. I'm not so good with my English.
Okay, so we're going to read from Ephesians 5, from verse, I think it starts at verse 21. It says, submit to one another out of reverence for Christ. Wives, submit to your husbands as to the Lord. For the husband is the head of the wife, as Christ is the head of the church, his body, of which he is the Saviour. Now as the church submits to Christ, so also wives should submit to their husbands in everything. Husbands, love your wives, just as Christ loved the church, and gave himself up for her, to make her holy, cleansing her by the washing with water through the word, and to present her to himself as a radiant church, without stain or wrinkle or any other blemish, but holy and blameless. In this same way, husbands ought to love their wives as their own bodies. He who loves his wife loves himself. After all, no one ever hated his own body, but he feeds and cares for it, just as Christ does the church, for we are members of his body. For this reason, a man will leave his father and mother and be united to his wife, and the two will become one flesh. This is a profound mystery, but I'm talking about Christ and the church. However, each one of you must also love his wife as he loves himself, and the wife must respect her husband. So, for me, honestly, this passage is very self-explanatory. I don't think there's a whole lot of mystery in it, and I don't think it's as complicated as so many people make it out to be. I also don't believe it's got anything to do with washing dishes or doing chores. It goes far deeper than that, because obviously husbands also do chores. I also wash dishes, and just because I wash dishes, it doesn't make me a submissive wife. You know, it's got nothing to do with it. To answer a question, yes, you should teach your son to wash dishes, because it's a good thing to learn. It's something that will serve him in his life, to be able to take care of himself, to take care of his environment. A lot of what the Bible teaches about leadership is about serving, and serving your family sometimes means humbling yourself and doing tasks that might not be associated with you as a husband or a father. You know, it's just food for thought there as well. It's just something I'm adding in. But I think at the crux of this matter, like I said in the last podcast, the church in the world is so mixed. It's almost the same thing. So there's a lot of worldly ideas that get mixed in with the Bible. So there's, the world is teaching women basically that you should be this independent, stand on your own 2 feet kind of person, but is also not telling you that you should take care of your family. I don't know why the world seems to think that is such an evil thing, to provide and to make a home for your family. Why women are so afraid of it, must be honest, I don't really understand it. And like we said before, like we said last week, it's got a lot to do with how the world is mixed in with the church, because you can't be a feminist and a Christian. You're a Christian. That's it. You're nothing more. You're nothing less. You're a Christian. We don't add all these other things to it. You know, if the Bible and God is telling us that we need to be submissive, we need to submit to one another out of reverence for Christ, we need to submit to God, wives need to submit to their husbands, husbands need to love their wives as their own body, I don't really see where the problem in any of those things are. God is telling us or asking us to do something. Surely as Christians, as his children, as people who follow him, that is exactly what we should do. It shouldn't be complicated. It shouldn't be a debate. It should just be simple. But like I said as well, it's got nothing to do with chores. You know, God put things in place as almost like, I'm gonna call it a chain of command. It's such a wrong way of putting it, and it's also not a hierarchy. But God put things in place in a certain way. When I think about this from the heart, I just feel like God has given each one of us a role to fulfill. So he's given the husband a role to fulfill, the wife a role to fulfill, and the husband's role is to provide this stability, this foundation, this household, this strength, and there's just, that is what a husband is supposed to bring to his family. Yes, and love, but I just feel like there's a strength that a father and a husband brings to a home. And then on a woman's side, there's a softness and a comfort and creating a home. It's almost like the man provides the house, but the woman creates the home. You know, and just from my own personal point of view, I love coming home because you have created a home for us. You know, a home where I feel comfortable, a home that feels like my fortress, you know. And I go out and I work the whole day. You have the I'm going to call it the luxury. You have the opportunity to be home during the week and stuff, and you take it upon yourself to do these things at home that take a lot of pressure off of me. And why that is a bad thing, I don't understand. Women have made being the I don't know how to put this now. It's like they've made the whole thing evil. You know, like you can't be somebody who provides and takes care of your family and stuff. No, you have to be this ruthless businesswoman and, you know, masculine woman. And I just don't understand I don't know. I don't get it.
I think that people are getting it wrong because they are mixing tradition and culture into what the Bible is speaking about, which I think has got nothing to do with how society has actually placed it in the world. I think tradition has made us believe that, and because all of these old religious viewpoints have come from years ago, especially in certain societies and cultures, they've drawn that into it as a biblical thing when it's got nothing to do with what it is. I do believe that if you're going to be in a marriage, and I've experienced this for myself in my own life, obviously, the fact that I've married someone in the hope that he will lead me was what I wanted. Because I've been in situations in my life where firstly I was single, having to maintain a household, earn a salary, look after myself, all of those things. And I've realized as a woman, it's so important to have somebody in your life that makes you feel like you've been taken care of. It's got nothing to do with washing dishes though. And so that's where I have to agree with you. I think that has been mixed up with how we actually view, do you view your husband as somebody you can depend on and to lead your household? And if so, then be comfortable with the fact that you have a husband that is raising a daughter that you are teaching to wash dishes, but at the same time teach your son. And at the same time, teach your daughter that when she's older and she's driving a car, how to check for the water in the reservoir in the car, because that's just as important. How to pump her tires. What happens if she gets a flat on the side of the road? Can she jack up her car and change the tire on her car? Because those are the things people don't think of. I think of those things because it's something that when I was a kid, I asked my dad. My dad showed me how to do these things. He was great like that. He showed me how to do things that most women, I realized, don't actually know how to do now. And at the same time, my mother actually taught me how to look after my home. She was adamant that we would have to clean the kitchen every single night. But you know what? It hasn't hindered me. So at the end of the day, it's only helped me to make a household for us. It's also helped me to realize, because of circumstances before in my life, why for me it is so important to have a husband who has God as his authority and wants to be led in that direction. If you have a worldly husband, that's probably not who you want to be washing dishes for.
Yeah, so I was just going to say, I think a big problem with the submissive thing comes in as well is because, unfortunately, men have abused that.
Yes.
That right, privilege,
authority.
God-given right. But yeah, authority, they've abused that. So there haven't really been men that women would want to submit to. Because surely if you have a husband that is submitted to God and loves you like he loves his own body and serves his family by providing and working hard and doing things that need to be done, it wouldn't be so hard for a woman to submit to somebody like that.
Correct. But not all men are the kind of men, and that's what we're talking about. Not all men are the kind of men who will willingly say, don't worry, I will do the dishes. There's a lot of men who have the perception of, well, you're the woman, you do it. And some people may be offended by the fact that I say that, but that's the truth. I've known men like that in my life. And then there are plenty of men who are happy to share the household chores. if you're a woman who's home in the day and you're not working and you're a housewife, I think it is your duty to look after your house. Because at the end of the day, if your husband is out and earning a salary and providing for your household, then you should be providing that comfort at home. If you're both trying to earn a salary and one of you is home more often than the other, like in our circumstances, I don't see why I shouldn't maintain and look after the household. If we had a daughter, she would probably just be copying what I'm doing because that's in her nature to copy. And if I'm not expecting my son to do it, you've got to look at your own household, I think, as well. And you've got to look at your own perception in your household between a married couple. It's probably very different if you're a single woman, and I suppose that changes.
Yeah, so another thing, if you had to think about it logically, I think all those years ago when women didn't work, you know, because you could afford to have a household on one salary, women didn't work. So yes, it kind of was expected that because the husband's at work working hard and earning the money and the wife is at home, that she does cooks and cleans and takes care of the kids when they come home from school and stuff. But those times have changed. So when the times change, then surely we as people need to adapt to that as well. There's no more, I mean, like I said, we're in a fortunate position where that is the case, but not everybody is. So for a husband to these days, just him, like, so the husband and wife are working. Now they both come home and the husband's like, no, you must you must do the dishes, you must make the food, you must take care of the kids. I mean, that's
wrong.
It's wrong. And
on
it
every level.
It can't work like that. Because, I mean, then you're basically just throwing your wife under the bus.
Yeah.
You know? So things have changed and times have changed. There was a time when it was more expected, but now it really is. Men need to jump in more. They need to help out more. They need to be more involved. And if the roles were reversed and I was at home the whole day and you were out working, then you would have come home to a clean house and better food would have been cooked. You know?
Yeah, probably. I'm not going to disagree with that because you are a better cook than me.
But you understand what I'm saying? The whole point of a marriage is not to walk all over each other or to abuse or use each other, but it's to try and build something together. That's the whole point. You become one flesh to build something together. And God asks us to do things in a certain way, not because he's trying to hinder us in any kind of way. I mean, if God is asking a wife to submit to her husband, surely there's a reason why God is asking you to do that. And like I said, he's not asking you to hinder you in any kind of way or to put you in a house of slavery.
I don't think there's much more you can say on the subject. I think it's pretty plain and simple in our household anyway. And I think you need to ask yourself the question, why do you perceive it that way? Why do you perceive that your daughter washing dishes and your son not is an issue? Because at the end of the day, if it is, then you need to sort that out in your household, perhaps. If you are a single woman, it's probably a very different thing because you don't have a man at home who you can hopefully teach a son that. I don't know. I don't want to say I can't be the judge of all things because it's not my right to be the judge of all things. But I think the subject is pretty simple. The Bible does not say to be subservient or a servant to your husband. It just says to submit in a respectful manner and for your husband to respectfully look after your wife as you would your own body. So if you truly love yourself for who you are, you will respect your husband. And if you truly love yourself for who you are, you'll truly respect your wife.
And look, I'm pretty sure there's a much bigger theological answer to this question. But I think on a simple, practical level, if your husband is submitted to God and he loves you, then why is it so hard for you to be submitted to him?
Yeah.
You know, if he's trying his best to lead his family, then why not support him?
Yes.
Why not try and lighten his load a little bit? You know, I'm not saying that a woman should stay in a relationship where there's abuse or any of that kind of stuff, but if a husband is really trying to seek God, you know, it's good to encourage one another, to be there for one another, to help one another, to listen to one another. None of those concepts has got anything to do with slavery or with washing dishes.
Yeah,
you know?
Absolutely. So thank you for the question that came in. We appreciate it. We hope that it kind of opened up the food for thought more, or at least answered a question. Again, we are not professionals. We're just two people who are having conversation with everyone else. And once again, thanks for tuning in. From myself, Louise, and
from me, Sean.
Cheers.
Ciao, ciao.
Thank you for listening to the Critically Numb Podcast. We would love to hear from you. Please leave a comment or a question. Alternatively, send us an email to the address listed in the show notes. Until next time, keep questioning.